thank you all for being here. I want to first give the floor to Rebecca from Hope. She leads their M&E team, and just want to give her the chance to talk about the Accord Research Alliance. And so I'll give you the floor. And there will be some time for questions. We're trying to keep each presentation. We have a couple presentations here. We're going to keep each presentation and questioning round to about 10 minutes or so.
All right, how's everybody doing? Sounds like it's an afternoon on Friday. Hey! Well, glad to have the opportunity to share with you about the Accord Research Alliance. First, I'm going to zoom out because the Accord Research Alliance is part of the Accord Network. So I'm going to provide some scaffolding, some context there. So the Accord Network is a community of over 100 Christian relief, development, and advocacy organizations that shares the gifts of relationships, resources, and representation through a unified voice. A couple of offerings of the Accord Network. There's an annual conference each fall in North Carolina. This one will be in mid-October. There are also 3 executive retreats offered each year, focused both on CEOs and rising leaders. And they also just launched a senior fellows program. I'd like to take a minute to call out the journal of the Accord Network. It's called the Christian Relief, Development, and Advocacy Academic Journal, CRDA. I also have the privilege of serving as an editorial board member. So if anyone is interested in authoring an article on a variety of topics, I have a handout that shares a little bit more about the scope. I would be really delighted to connect with you. There are book reviews, there are presentations of findings, thought pieces, a whole variety. So in addition, for the Accord Network, there's a community of practice around partnership and 3 member alliances. One focused on WASH, one focused on formation and care, and one focused on research. And that's what I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about with you. I personally first became involved in the ARA in 2016 and have had the privilege of serving on the steering committee for the last 4 years. So the Accord Research Alliance, zooming out a bit in terms of history and context, it was formed in 2012 by Dr. Beth Birmingham. A shout out to Dr. Birmingham. One, she's an incredible leader who I would highly recommend everyone learning from in this space. And she and others recently launched the Christian Alliance for Inclusive Development, which is focused on addressing the discrepancies between the percentage of women that are receiving development services, that is very high, and the percentage of women that are in leadership in organizations, development organizations, that is very low. They're doing amazing work. So again, the Christian Alliance for Inclusive Development, I invite all people, men and women, who need to work together towards equity in this space. So invite you to learn more about that. So Dr. Birmingham founded the ARA in 2012, and the mission of the Accord Research Alliance is to connect, equip, and inspire Christ-centered relief, development, and advocacy organizations and practitioners in their journey of listening, monitoring, evaluation, and research. We dream together of a community of organizations and practitioners fostering Christ-centered, data-informed, and responsive practices. Our steering committee is comprised of both academic and practitioner leaders with representation from Food for the Hungry, Compassion International, Eastern University, Asbury Theological Seminary, and Hope, because of me. So we serve the community in a few key ways. We have an annual research intensive each fall as a pre-event to the Accord annual conference, where we dive deep on specific topics. Examples of topics for the last few years include cultivating a data-informed, Christ-centered organization, evidence and the kingdom, and last year, nothing about us without us, a kingdom perspective for sharing love and power in evaluation and research practice. The next 2 years, we'll be focusing on spiritual metrics, and we would invite you to join us. Yeah, let's go, James. I'll see you there. So we also have a podcast that is available anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. You can search for Accord Research Alliance to hear insights, reflections, and experiences from a variety of leaders in this space. And if you'd like to be on a podcast, let me know. We'd be glad to learn from you. Lastly, we have webinars. I'd like to highlight an upcoming webinar on Thursday, May 4th at 11 a.m. We're hosting a symposium with Dr. Jayakumar Christian on the topic of engaging dualism and spiritual metrics, which aligns with the conversations that we've been having. For those that are engaged in academia in the room, I'd like to highlight that we have a faculty group led by Dr. Steve Offit from Asbury Theological Seminary and Dr. Roland Hawksbergen from Calvin University and Dr. Jason Pultzer from the Miro Center. So the faculty group focuses on bringing together Christian faculty who are teaching, researching, and practicing in the relief development and advocacy field. They're seeking to increase faculty participation in the Accord Research Alliance through webinars, online forums, and they're exploring providing connections between academics and organizations seeking academic partnership. Lastly, a few ways to get connected and to learn more. First, I'd invite you to sign up for emails. If you go to accordnetwork.org/ARA, you can really find all the information you need there. But signing up for emails is the way that you'll be informed about upcoming events. On our website, you can also find access to resources from all of our last intensives and beyond. We have a LinkedIn group titled Accord Research Alliance. I mentioned before the podcast. And we'd love to invite you to join us in October for our intensive on October 17th in North Carolina. And lastly, speaking to the CRDA Journal, you can read the most recent issue at crdajournal.org. I have handouts with me with links and more info, so if you would like one, please feel free to see me. Should we pause for questions now, or?
Sure.
All right. Sure. Yes, you can. Let me hand out the handouts. Thanks. Any others?
Is that just one?
No, that's like 25 of them.
I was like, man, I didn't know what I asked for.
This is our theory of change, everything you can dream of. Yes.
So at the Accord conference, there were two tracks. There was like a CED track and then an ARA track, I think. And the CED was like Christian Economic Development or something. And I was expecting it to actually be a bit more like this conference where there were discussions from economists, but it felt more like team building among operations people working with anti-poverty or humanitarian mission works. So is that, maybe could you share like just real brief about the CED?
Yeah, so CED is a separate network that was highlighted at the Accord Network Conference. It's a Christian Economic Development Network. So if anyone's familiar with CEAP, what CEAP used to be, it's like a Christian subset of CEAP that was Economic Development Organization. So they have a couple of different arms focusing on partnership, training, integral mission. I don't know all of them. But yeah, it's like a separate arm that was being highlighted at Accord. So for anybody engaged in economic development, that is more a gathering of practitioners in that space. But certainly anyone from academia would be welcome to join those conversations. I think that's more the impetus because it's founded by practitioner organizations. Leading that way was certainly a desire to expand. Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'd like to give, James, if you have, I know you just presented about the upcoming community, but do you have a few more words you'd like to add? Don't feel obliged to fill the time, but if there's additional information about the forthcoming learning community, I'd like to invite you up to speak about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, and it's super fun to follow Accord. So first of all, you should all join Accord. You should come to Ridgecrest in October. It's the best. You'll make lots of good friends. The food's just not as good as the EA conferences. So Ridgecrest is where they host the annual Accord. Beautiful North Carolina. So they didn't pay me to say that, but
I will.
if you took it, no. But they are actually, and this is very much kind of live and kind of yet to officially kind of get out the door, but we are partnering with Accord with the learning community, which is really, really exciting. And so the whole idea is that we go from kind of all of the lessons that we've just learned on building the tool, but then we say, let's open this up. It's not going to be, we're not going to try and bring everyone together in a room. There are going to be a few kind of tiers of engagement. So there's going to be, because we want it to I'm going to be hiring a community manager, so somebody to really foster deep community, curate the metrics, the insights, give real value to the community. And so there's going to be kind of 3 tiers: one, a kind of anchor organization, real deep engagement, then a kind of contributor organization, and then we're going to share it more widely as well. That's sort of level 3, which is free. And so what else to say? And so values align with Accord, which is really exciting because obviously they're pressing into spiritual metrics and us understanding this. So we see this as a really exciting partnership. Just to say, if there's any organizations or you know people, I basically see this as a really amazing way to kind of upskill for a relatively low cost, upskill teams in this area. And not just that, but be a part of collaboratively learning and growing together. So I'm really excited about this. Just to kind of recap what it will be. So first of all, access to the survey. As I mentioned, we're giving that away for free, but obviously we're going to hold your hand a little bit more if you're kind of part of that learning community and really work together around integrating that. Secondly, the curation of other spiritual impact tools and metrics. So we're going to bring in other measures, including both related kind of secular quote-unquote holistic well-being metrics, things like life satisfaction, and curating that into a library that I think is going to be an incredible resource for Merle managers. Then we're also, thirdly, comparative data sets and benchmark data. To the extent that there's a willingness, we're excited to have people dedicated to meta-analyses across organizations. And even then, from everything from, I think I mentioned, Merle managers saying, this question's been super useful, to actually comparing real data. That becoming insights that we can wrestle with and learn with together. For instance, finding out which indicators capture change well over time, translate well in different contexts. We're really going to get into the weeds on some of this. And then all of that will come through newsletter, an annual report, and regular meetings where we're going to pull in friends and experts like David Bronkmer, Brian Fickett, hopefully, and others. So that's the community. As I mentioned, we love your organizations to be a part of it. I think it's going to be incredibly dynamic, but it is for organizations that really want to grow in this and contribute together. But equally, there'll be a newsletter sign up, also be a recipient as well. So, open to any questions if there's a couple more minutes.
Any more questions on the forthcoming Kingdom Impact Framework community?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about the right way to ask this question, but you presented in your slides I think one of the goals being for funding to flow to effective organizations. Is that right, or is that not right?
That is correct.
Like one of the goals. I'm wondering how we think that would happen. I think this is broader than just the Kingdom Impact Framework, but I'm imagining a bunch of organizations will start using these questionnaires, and we'll have some data on how people in their programs are doing spiritually.
Yeah.
And then what are the next steps that would lead to money flowing to effective organizations?
Yeah, great question. So let me just take a step back and answer it not just about spiritual impact. So the vision actually of our platform is to help organizations become healthy and good stewards. So, for example, one of our tools is going to help them flag, hey, do you have good governance? Mm-hmm. Are you looking after your people well? Right? So that becomes really high value for donors because they care if they're giving to healthy organizations. Right? So that kind of hopefully actually lowers the power dynamic where there are foundations who are really starting to care, not just about, hey, are you delivering my impact, but are you crushing a bunch of Christians in the process? Right, in terms of sort of employee health and the rest of it. So that's one aspect, and then, it's moving towards, I guess, I don't know honestly. I don't know if we'll get to where, Sam's got to with like life satisfaction and that kind of, I don't know if we'll get to that with spiritual impact, but we want to move the dial, right? So we want to, like Hope already mentioned the Hope Quotient, we want to help brag about the outcomes that they've seen, right? We then want to help other organizations who don't have those measures brag about that. Does that make sense? So even if it's, here's the thing, I think donors are going to be increasingly excited, not actually just about, oh, you've increased by this, but you're caring about it, you're measuring it, and a bit like ICM. This is why ICM is trusted by a secular funder, because that, first ever Christian organization that GAF is funded. Well, it's because they're data driven. They're like, sure, ICM are measuring really overt Christian salvation questions, and they're getting funding. So I genuinely believe that, and it's not necessarily that ICM are going, yeah, look at all this crazy spiritual fruit. They're just being good stewards. And so I think part of the funding will flow through like, wow, these guys really care if the organization is healthy and spiritual impact is happening. So that means there will have to be a real care in how the data's, we don't want to suddenly create that, whatever syndrome is where everyone suddenly, I don't know. There's,
One of the syndromes.
exactly, where it swings too far and suddenly, I don't know, we stop helping people come out of material poverty because we're, going off the wrong metric. So that's why I'm giving it in a little bit of a nuanced way, because it will have to be done carefully.
Yeah. What's GAF?
The Global Innovation Fund.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you. Thank
Cool.
you, James.
Pleasure.
One more. Round of applause. So I want to first ask if anybody here is connected with Seeds. I think some might be. If anybody who is connected with Bruce Swideck's Seeds Network and would like to share a bit about that, you're welcome to in a couple minutes. First, I'm going to let Rebecca share about an upcoming conference that if you're in this room, you'd probably be interested in at least knowing about. So.
Just sharing on behalf of Lincoln, this is not something that I'm coordinating. So ICM in 2016, they hosted a conference with Dean Carlin and IPA at Yale around what works. And I don't think it has a website.
Oh, it doesn't?
Yeah, I don't think so. So around what works and about using evidence-based strategies for Christian ministries using evidence-based strategies. So a big focus was sharing some of the initial findings of their first RCTs. So I'm reading from a rough draft for the conference, emphasis on rough. Anything could change, I'm sure. But they said the dates are June 1st to June 2nd in DC. If you're interested, don't ask me. Talk to Lincoln. He and the ICM team are coordinating this. I'm just trying to share from him.
Sign-ups are open, they told me. So
Okay.
You're welcome to sign up for this.
Yeah, I'm just reading from an email that has some of the info. So examples of topics that will be covered. They're thinking they might have around 200 attendees, potentially both practitioners, academics, and funders. So types of things they'll be talking about is benefits of research, diving deep into the RCTs that ICM has been doing, some conversations on cash benchmarking, logistics for an RCT, finding a research partner, technology requirements, all related to program design. Then talking about integrated approaches to poverty reduction, talking about the multidimensional index, human flourishing, tier funds, Hope's work, Chalmers' approach. They'll be talking about evidence generating revenue, NGOs paid for results. Have a session on economic development livelihood, experience from graduation models, some studies on microcredit and micro savings, integrating climate care with poverty reduction. Then a focus on health with ICM's experience, sharing from some other organizations as well. Then focusing on education, focusing on hope and secular values, and a session on spiritual values. So again, this is being hosted by ICM. It will be in DC, precise location to be confirmed. June 1st to June 2nd of this year. It's called the What Works Conference. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to Lincoln or somebody else from ICM. Maybe no questions because this is literally all I have. I was like, when did I get this email?
Thank you. And Lincoln had to leave, but I'm sure he's happy to answer questions if anybody here is interested in going. I expect to be there. Is anybody else already expecting to be there or knows they'll be there? Okay, that's interesting. Good to know. Awesome. I'd like to share for just a couple minutes about EA for Christians and what we're about and how we came to be. And Asha, you're welcome to share, or I'm happy to share instead. Okay. So first, Asha, she's my teammate. She's helping co-organize this conference. We also massive help. Thank you so much. And we also have another staff member, Vesa Hautala from Finland, and he's been helping. He's our research coordinator. We have a few other contractors who help us with various things, and many other volunteers who've been massively helpful in so many ways. So a bit about this name, Effective Altruism for Christians. So effective altruism is really two things. First, it's this idea that we should use reason and evidence to find the very best ways to do good in the world, and then to take action on that basis. So as a Christian, when I hear this, I think, okay, yes, we should use reason and evidence to do good, to advance God's kingdom, to make an impact in this world. And yeah, we should use our brains to do this. So to me, this idea was always intuitive, and I always said yes from when I heard this. It's not just an idea, it's also a movement or a community of many individuals and organizations who really care about this. And the logo of this movement is like, I can pull it up right now. It's like a light bulb with a heart inside. And so that combines the thinking and it combines the heart, the head and the heart of doing good. EA traditionally was very focused on, I guess more so than it is today in popular conception, interested in effective donations and effective giving. And in fact, I believe this is still the core of the movement, although it's a broad movement. So you have many things that many people in this movement are interested in, from what it means to give effectively to anti-poverty and health endeavors, all the way ranging to causes for reducing animal suffering, to hedging against risks posed by potentially malevolent artificial intelligence or biosecurity or other kinds of emergent risks. So it's a very broad movement. We are the Christian sub-community of this movement. We are funded by Christians who essentially who earn to give, who intentionally take on careers to earn money so that they can give it away and give it away effectively. And these givers were asking questions about, like, how can we give most effectively? Effectiveness is not something that the church is really talking a whole lot about. There should be organizations that talk more about effectiveness. So that's where we're coming from, and we exist as a pretty sizable sub-community, actually. So across the US and Western Europe, where most of our members are, there are a few hundred of us who actively come to events. We had a conference last week in London with about a little over 60 people there. We had Rory Stewart come speak about a very similar topic to what Paul spoke about today, actually, about cash transfers. And we're really excited to be growing and to be doing more in this space. So we're also a safe haven for Christians who find themselves in this broader movement, which is trying to ask these hard questions about how we do good, but it's asking these questions devoid from maybe a more explicit faith element, which is for every single person in this room, the reason why we love. We love because Jesus first loved us, and we are so excited to be his hands and feet into this world. So that's a bit about effective altruism for Christians. 1 minute about our programs, what do we actually do? Well, we create a lot of spaces. We put on events like this. We had that annual conference last week, which wasn't just about maybe spiritual metrics or poverty alleviation, but it also looked at other questions about reducing animal cruelty and also preventing pandemics and other sorts of impact-related questions that Christians are interested in. We have lots of networking between Christians who are trying to make differences in these spaces. We offer an intro course. Asha leads an intro course, kind of going through these core EA ideas through a biblical and Christian basis. And we have lots of fun research and content that we produce. And I'd like to take a moment to share a new project that we're launching. And I'm kind of combining this with the closing talk. So for the sake of, for all of us, because it's been a really long day, but it's been a wonderful day. I'm going to go ahead and share something, because what we've noticed is that effectiveness always needs to be a priority, but a big question that many of the people we talk to, many of them ages between 18 and 30, is how can I make the biggest impact with my vocation? How can I wisely steward my time in a way that actually makes a difference? There's so many problems in the world. The world is such a dark place. There's so much injustice and darkness, so many things marred by sin. How can I, just one person, make an impact in this world? And so for this reason, we're very excited to be launching a second brand, which is for us a sort of outreach project, which answers these very questions. A deeply felt needs that Christians have, especially at university, where we help Christians to think about their calling, particularly in terms of problems that God might be calling them to tackle, or particular injustices. And we curate research on each of these, and we include actionable steps that Christians can take to pursue what we believe, sincerely, though admittedly probably in many flawed ways, what we believe are some of the most impactful ways to make an impact in these spaces. So you can see we have here global poverty, or missions, or catastrophic pandemics. And we have, so I'm going to show just real quick about these profiles. So we have reports curated with research on each of these. In fact, some people in this room have worked on some of these, so I want to first thank Colin for working on this global poverty report that we have here, and then also Andy, who's been working on the missions report that we have here. Just love to give them a round of applause. And for each of these, folks online can find this. They can read through why Christians should care. We have a podcast that we're launching that I've had the privilege of leading, with including several in this room. We have one with James, in fact, but we had one with Brian that I actually recorded at the Accord conference. It's on YouTube. Look at it on Spotify this week. But and then we also have an impact mentorship program where we found that Christians at universities, especially top universities, have great resources for learning how to make an impact with. We're basically learning how to advance in their career in a secular way, but they're not getting like the spiritual mentorship they need to really feel grounded. And their spiritual mentors are often ones who maybe don't understand the career progression the same. So they're looking for mentors who can provide both spiritual and impact and career-oriented advice. And so we are building a community. We already have a community that can offer this kind of mentorship. If you're interested in offering this mentorship, please let me know. And we're going to be offering this to Christians. And how it works, basically, Christians who land on the site, they take 10 or 15 minutes to share about their current thoughts about career. They have a conversation with us or a specific paired mentor who can help them basically about their plans. And then they make a plan, and we provide them with resources for how to take next steps. So we're very happy to be launching this and to be growing along with your input, especially on these cause areas. So with all this, I just want to encourage everybody in this room that if you're here, I want to remind us, if you're here, you have an incredible opportunity to make an impact, to really be a part of the change and the redemption that God is bringing about in this world. And I want to just remind you of that. Don't forget the ability that each and every one of us has to make an impact, not just through our positions, also through our giving. I'm always overjoyed when I think not only do I get to talk about effective organizations, but I get the opportunity to give to them. And I have so much room to grow there. I could definitely be giving more, but I think we should all remember that and really rejoice in how much good we can do in that. And remember how much good we can do in this unique position and place that God has put us. I'm reminded of the story of Esther, where Esther, she is part of the salvation of Israel. And she is approached by, I think, her uncle Haman, where Haman comes to her and he says, Esther, who knows, but that you were born for such a time as this. For such a time as this you were born. And when I think about all the problems in the world today, especially these problems of physical and spiritual poverty, which we've been discussing the last day and a half, there's still vast, huge problems, right? There's still 700 million people who are living under $2.15 a day. There are something like 1 billion people who may have never heard the gospel. there are 5 or so million children who die under the age of 5 or 6 every year. But you were born for such a time as this, and there's something that we can all do through our careers and through our giving to have a massive impact. So let's just encourage each other to fight that good fight and to remember that we're not defined by how successful we are. We're defined by who we are. We're children of God and loved by God. And for me, that is just the fuel that will keep me going. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to encourage you to stay involved in these communities. Yeah, thank you so much.